Hey, Joe Vizio again. Figured I would go ahead and do the next part of talking about my sister. And, I kind of hate breaking things up into a couple parts, but sometimes, I know I really can't make videos longer than 30 minutes or so, I guess I'm trying to be convenient in case anybody does watch it. You don't want to sit there and watch an epic long 2-hour rant from somebody. Geez, you go to the friggin' movies, watch a real movie for that. So just try and, keep it to a dull roar. So where did I leave off with my sister? I was kind of talking about how she's never really worked for anything. She just works to survive. She's never tried anything. She's never done anything. She's never taken a risk. My sister was a school person. She was good at school, and I was good at school. I just didn't. I got to a point where, I thought it was all a fucking sham. I love education, but I guess I just didn't like the system that it's set up in. I think that you can make education a lot better, but I'm not going to get into that rant now. My sister was a school person. She was very smart. She was definitely a conform, obey, statist kind of person that, can handle a lot of that stuff. And, she could really have made something of herself. My sister kind of has the same disease I do, where, sometimes you just don't know when to shut the fuck up. I think that just comes from our childhoods, to where we had to put our heads down so much that one day you just snap and you just don't take shit anymore, until you get rid of your narc. Your narc is really the only person that you take this shit from. I started standing up to my father, especially once I became a young adult. I still didn't understand what was going on, but I would have my fill, and I would tell him. A lot of times I would tell him that he's egotistical, and one time I told him that he can stick his finger up his pompous ass. I hit my level. I wish I would have known more about this back when I was talking to my father, because I would really love to, just for one time, to stick that mirror right up in his face. But I never did get that opportunity. But, that's okay. I think I accomplished so much more just getting away from him. Once you do get away from your narc takes everybody with them, which has happened to me, and including my sister. My sister thought that I wanted her to choose between me and her father, and I didn't. I sometimes looked at my sister as to, she might be able to be somebody to kind of step in and help diffuse the situation, but, now that I look back at it, how could she do anything? She was just afraid of the man as I was. I guess I thought that if both of us could stand up and say, no, maybe, we might be able to hammer that point across, but, divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer. So, my sister has gone through a lot of different jobs just because, you know, she can't keep her mouth shut. She just gets to that point where she has to say something, and sometimes it's fucked up, and somebody don't like what she said, and she ends up getting fired, or, you know, there's been times where, you know, my sister lost her job once from it was a housing company that they were running a scam. Just like a lot of people back in 2006, 2007, 2008, you know, they just were running this big housing scam. My sister worked for a builder, and, you know, they ended up, they all went to jail, and, you know, my sister lost all of her money. Of course, my father said that was her fault because that's the people that she chooses to work for. And I know similar things have happened. Similar things have happened to me, you know, as I always tend to work for the small business person when I wasn't doing on my own. You know, I was working for somebody like me. So, you know, there's been a few times where the company would just go out of business. It happens, man. And, oh, well, you know, you just choose the wrong people to work for. This is all your fault. This is why you're just a piece of shit. And they would do the same thing to my sister. I remember just as recently as, you know, when I came back to Florida from Kentucky, 2007, just sitting at the dinner table and listening to him and his wife just kind of talk about my sister. And what they're doing is they're telling you what I'm saying right now about her job and work history, and that she's never really put forth any kind of effort into bettering herself. But they kind of did it more from a smug, we're better than you attitude. You know, it's one thing to say, you know, man, my sister, she just doesn't apply herself, and, you know, and she doesn't use her resources wisely, where they would go, you know, she's just so wrong. She never applies herself to anything. What can you expect? And she wastes her resource. She's just a waster. She's a big waster. That's kind of the difference. There's a helpful way of doing it, and then there's a gossip way to do it. They did it the gossip way. And I kind of took offense to it. You know, I took offense to it because I know that when I wasn't sitting at that dinner table, they were doing the same thing about me. You know, always remember that in life. If you're around a person that talks about other people, you can bet your ass when you're not around, they're probably talking about you. That's just the way it works. And, you know, I mean, I kind of took particular offense to it because, you know, I mean, I've gone through the same things that my sister has. Yeah, I do agree that she could have done something to better her situation, but she hasn't. And, you know, I mean, I think it just kind of gets into something deeper. You know, it's a hard one to put my finger on. And I'm sorry, I seem like a little distracted. I just seen driving down the road, somebody has lifted, I mean, jacked up on big mudder tires, a minivan. Endless possibilities, I guess. But anyway, you know, it's something psychological with them. It's the same thing with the hoarding the food. It's a psychological thing. Sometimes you do stuff and you don't even realize why you do it. And I'll give you an example, and I use myself as that example. I am a collector. I collect junk. I have turned my garage into a bar, a man cave. And inside that man cave is like a museum. Toys that I've just collected over the years. A lot of them are stuff that I played with when I was a kid. And sports memorabilia, you know, things that just appeal to me, things that tell my story, and this is what I do. I have a hell of a collection that is spread all the way across my garage, and it's nice. I mean, I think I did it in good taste. The kids love it. People like to come in and they see all this kind of stuff, and they're just amazed by it. Kids like to play with the toys and everything, and I think it's just awesome that they can do that. But it's something psychological that I do that. Maybe, you know, I didn't have those kinds of things that I wanted when I was a kid, so now, you know, I'm an adult, I can get whatever the fuck I want. I don't know. I mean, I was just recently, you know, they're chatting with a friend of mine, and my friend was saying that, you know, they have the same kind of issue with clothing. You know, they went to school and you know, really just did their best with what they had when it came to the school clothes and all that. And now that she's an adult, you know, she's got a closet packed full of clothes because she could never have that when she was a kid. And, you know, I mean, I kind of understand, you know. I mean, I guess I didn't get it with the clothes. You know, I guess I just wasn't that well groomed of a person. But, you know, I understand it now. And my sister kind of does the same thing. Her house is filled with knickknacks and bric-a-brac and all kinds of things, you know. My sister has the original Nintendo she bought when she was an adult. I'm sorry, it was like a Super Nintendo. And I mean, she still has the box, the plastic, the little twist ties for the wires, and everything. She still has this. And it's just something, it's something up here. It's a psychological thing. So, it's rough. I wish I still had a relationship with my sister, but I'm afraid that this is a divide that's going to last quite some time. I think that mine and my sister's divide is going to last until my father passes. If even that ever. But I don't know. So that's just a little, you know, two-part introduction into my sister and what I'll start doing. Instead of making a third part of this, I think as I just start, you know, telling stories, you know, I mean, I'll just include my sister more and you know, tell some of their stories. Be that from my perspective or, you know, even my opinion of what her perspective might be, if that kind of makes any sense to you. But I'm in another building, so I'm going to go clean my building, and, you know, I got all day today, so when I come back out, I'll make another video.